Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Dear professors and dear colleagues, before we start our presentation, let us introduce ourselves. My name is Aisyah Najuba, and my friend is Jihan Qurrotuain. We are mathematics education student in Sunan Kalijaga State Islamic University, Yogyakarta. Here, we would like to talk about analysis of understanding the concept of mentally retarded children on rectangular flat-shaped materials. This research was conducted by Muhammad Rafiqul Abrar, Mathematics Education, Sunan Kalijaga State Islamic University, Yogyakarta, Indonesia. We have divided our talk into 5 parts. First point of our talk is about the background of study. Now, what is extraordinary education? Extraordinary education is education that is specifically organized for students who have physical or mental disorders. It aims to help students who have physical or mental disorders to be able to develop attitudes, knowledge, and skills as individuals and members of the community in holding reciprocal relationship with social, cultural, and natural environment, and can develop abilities in the world of work or follow further education. With special education, children with special needs certainly have the same opportunities as other children to get a proper education through formal institutions such as special school, SLB. In Bahasa, we call it as sekolah luar biasa. Next, children with mental retardation. In Bahasa, we call it as tunagrahita. Children with mental retardation is a condition of a child whose intelligence far below average and is characterized by limited intelligence and lack of conversation in social interaction. Mentally retarded children have difficulties in interacting and focusing their attention, so that in the learning process they need special handling. Teachers need time and a gradual process to prepare students to master mathematics. Teaching and learning activities that take place in SLP include all activities that provide subject matter to students, so that students have adequate skills and knowledge that can provide benefits for student development. In the process of teaching and learning mathematics, apart from involving educators or teachers and students directly, other supports are also needed, namely the use of appropriate methods, appropriate learning media, and supportive environmental condition and situation. And next, goals of the research. Goals of the research are: first, to know the understanding of the concept of mentally retarded children at SLB and 1 Yogyakarta on rectangular flat-shaped materials. And second, to know the factors that influence understanding the concept of mentally retarded children at SLB and 1 Yogyakarta on the material of rectangular flat shapes. Now we move on to the second part. The second part is about theoretical review. 1. Concept understanding. According to Sanjaya, concept understanding is the ability of students in the form of mastery of number of subject matter, where students do not just know or remember a number of concepts, they are easy to understand, provide interpretation of data, and are able to apply concepts that are in accordance with their cognitive structure. Next, the concept of rectangular flat-shaped materials. According to Ibrahim, literal is a simple closed curve that has 4 angles. Generally, there are 6 types of wake-up flat with literal. They are: first picture we can see in the top left is square long, and the top middle is square, and the top right is parallelogram, and the bottom left is rhombus, or in bahasa we call it as belah ketupat, and in the bottom middle we call it kite, and the bottom right trapezoid. Next, we are moved to the third part. The third part is about research method. The research method used is descriptive qualitative research, which is methods to study intents to conduct an investigation to describe and explain the state of the subject of research at the moment is now based on the facts that appear or as it should be. The data of this research were obtained from the results of observation, testing, diagnostics, and interviews.
To part 4, which is about research data collection. Data collection in this study was carried out in 3 stages, that is learning, observation, diagnostic test, and interview. The first stage is learning observation. The first meeting on this learning observation was held on Tuesday, November 26, 2019. At the beginning of the lesson, the teacher greeted the student to pray before starting the lesson. The presentation of the material begins with the introduction of rectangular shapes. The second meeting of this learning observation was held on Wednesday, November 27, 2019. At this meeting, the teacher continued to discuss the material for rectangular shapes. The material presented at the second meeting was the properties of kites and trapezoid. The second stage is diagnostic test. This diagnostic test is given after students have obtained the material for rectangular shape. The diagnostic test was carried out on Friday, November 29, 2019, in the class of the SLB and 1 Yogyakarta Fashion Study Group. The result of the analysis of this diagnostic test found several levels of student understanding when solving problems about quadrilaterals. Here, the researcher present an analysis of student conceptual understanding based on the guidelines for analyzing student conceptual understanding of the material that has been made. A sample of questions from the diagnostic test developed by researchers are as follows. This question aims to determine the ability of students to classify objects according to their concept. The result of working on the subject DE are as follows. Based on the picture, it shows that the DE subject answered in drawing flat shapes such as squares, kites, and parallelograms are appropriate. However, the DE subject made a mistake in drawing a parallelogram. Then third stage is interview. The interview method is an auxiliary method used to collect data. The purpose of this interview was to obtain information related to understanding the concept of quadrilaterals, and respondent also gave answer orally. Based on interview conduct with the subject of DA, it is known that students are able to understand and question well, but on this question, students are still not right to draw parallelograms. Next to last part 5 is about discussion result. Based on the result of the learning observation, diagnostic tests, and interviews with mentally retarded students, it is known that his ability to understand concept of SLB and Yogyakarta student is influenced by several factors as follows. The different character of each mentally retarded child, the teacher must not be by the mentally retarded child. Based on the result of research and discussion, the suggestion that research can give that is the teacher needs to provide individual guidance, positive interaction between teacher and mentally retarded Students can encourage students to become enthusiastic. That is our presentation. Thanks for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.